The world knows Lionel Messi as the greatest footballer who has ever lived. 8 Ballon d'Ors. A World Cup title. A career so complete that debates about his greatness stopped being debates years ago. But on July 19, 2026, at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, the world watched something different. There was a boy who was once told his body might never grow properly. A father who left everything behind, chasing a medical treatment his family couldn't afford. A string of heartbreaking losses in his prime that made an entire nation briefly turn against him. And on that July night, in front of 80,000 people, there were tears, quiet, real, and impossible to hide, as Messi collected a runner-up medal for a trophy he never got to lift. Just hours earlier, hidden from the cameras, he had already told his teammates the truth everyone had been quietly suspecting for years. How does the greatest player of his generation finally admit, in a locker room instead of a press conference, that the story has reached its final chapter? If Lionel Messi's story has meant something to you, leave a like before we begin. This one's for him. Lionel Andres Messi was born on June 24, 1987, in Rosario, Argentina, the third of 4 children in a working-class family. His father, Jorge, worked at a steel factory. His mother, Celia, worked at a magnet manufacturing plant. Football was simply what the Messi boys did in every spare hour, on every patch of open ground they could find. By age 10, Lionel was already a standout at local club Newell's Old Boys. But that same year, doctors diagnosed him with a growth hormone deficiency, a condition that, left untreated, threatened to keep him permanently undersized in a sport built on physical dominance. The treatment was expensive. Reports at the time suggested it could cost hundreds of dollars a month, an amount the Messi family simply could not sustain long-term. River Plate, one of Argentina's biggest clubs, expressed interest in signing him, but ultimately couldn't commit to covering his medical costs. Then came the decision that would alter the entire trajectory of his life. FC Barcelona's youth academy, La Masia, agreed to pay for his treatment if the family relocated to Spain. According to popular accounts of the story, the deal was informally sealed on a paper napkin by a Barcelona sporting director eager to secure the signing before anyone changed their mind. Jorge Messi packed up the family and moved across an ocean, leaving behind everything familiar, for the sake of a son whose body hadn't even finished growing yet. That napkin, and the father willing to gamble everything on it, would end up changing football forever. The move to Barcelona was not the fairy tale ending it might look like in hindsight. A young, homesick Messi struggled badly with the transition, separated from most of his extended family, adjusting to a new country, a new language, and the academy system that tested him constantly, all while still undergoing daily growth hormone injections. He was small, quiet, and often overlooked in training sessions filled with talented Spanish youth prospects who didn't carry his same physical uncertainty. But something in Messi's game was undeniable: a low center of gravity, close control, and a vision for the game that made up for whatever size he was missing. He was rising through an academy that would eventually produce some of the finest players in Barcelona's history, competing against players who, unlike him, had never had to fight simply to grow at a normal rate. By 16, Messi was training with Barcelona's senior squad. By 17, he had made his first team debut. The skinny kid who left Rosario chasing medical treatment was about to become the club's next great hope. May 1, 2005. Camp Nou, Barcelona. A 17-year-old Messi came on as a substitute in a La Liga match against Albacete. In the 90th minute, receiving a delicate flick from Ronaldinho, he calmly chipped the ball over the goalkeeper for his first ever goal for Barcelona's first team. It was a small moment in a fairly routine match, but it carried enormous symbolism. Ronaldinho, already established as one of the best players on the planet, had just assisted the goal that would launch the career of the man who would eventually surpass him entirely. Messi wheeled away in celebration, mobbed by teammates, the goal capping off what had already become an unforgettable rise through Barcelona's ranks in barely 2 years since his debut for the club's lower sides. It wasn't a Champions League final. It wasn't a World Cup moment. But it was the first real proof, on the biggest stage in Spanish football, that the boy from Rosario belonged there. Everything that followed, every Ballon d'Or, every record, every trophy, traced back to that single-chipped finish against Albacete. What followed reshaped football history. Messi would go on to win a record 8 Ballon d'Or awards for Champions League titles with Barcelona and became the club's all-time leading scorer with over 670 goals across his tenure there. Internationally, however, glory proved far more elusive for years. Argentina suffered heartbreak after heartbreak, losing the 2014 World Cup final to Germany and back-to-back Copa America finals in 2015 and 2016, prompting Messi to briefly announce his international retirement in 2016 out of sheer frustration. He reversed that decision, and in 2021, Messi finally lifted his first major trophy with Argentina, winning the Copa America on home soil against fierce rivals Brazil. Then came the moment that silenced any remaining doubts about his legacy, the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar, where Messi led Argentina to the title, defeating France in a legendary final that went to penalties after a stunning 3-3 draw, with Messi himself scoring twice in regulation. At 35 years old, Messi had completed football's ultimate resume. In 2023, he moved to Inter Miami in Major League Soccer, sparking a cultural phenomenon in American football and signing a contract extension that would keep him in the league through December 2028. For a man who had already achieved everything, the story could have ended there. Instead, one more World Cup was waiting. Here's what the trophy celebrations rarely show. Behind the scenes, Messi has continued to manage the demands of playing at an elite level well into his late 30s. A body that has absorbed nearly 2 decades of professional football at the highest possible intensity, still performing well enough to score 12 goals in 14 MLS appearances heading into the 2026 World Cup. There was also the emotional weight of an aging body chasing one final tournament. Messi has spoken candidly about how physically demanding a 7th World Cup cycle would be, previously admitting that competing again at his age would be extremely difficult, a rare public acknowledgement of vulnerability from a player usually associated with effortless brilliance. Before, he also reflected, in that same message, on what the journey had actually meant to him. The best thing about all these years has never been just the titles, but the whole journey, getting back up in difficult moments and enjoying every step. For a man whose career has been defined by records and trophies, it was a rare glimpse into what actually mattered to him underneath all of it. July 19, 2026. MetLife Stadium, New Jersey. The FIFA World Cup Final. Argentina versus Spain. Messi, playing in a record 6th World Cup at 39 years old, had already scored 8 goals across the tournament, finishing second in the race for the Golden Boot. The final went to extra time, tied at the end of regulation. But Spain found the breakthrough, winning 1-0 to deny Argentina the back-to-back title. As the final whistle blew, cameras captured Messi walking off the pitch, collecting his runner-up medal, and breaking down in tears. A rare, unguarded moment from a player who had carried Argentina's hopes across 6 World Cups spanning more than 2 decades. According to Argentine journalist Hernán Castillo, in the dressing room afterward, Messi delivered an emotional speech to his teammates, telling them directly that the match against Spain had been his final appearance for the Argentine national team. Unlike previous emotional moments in the tunnel before matches, this time there was no public declaration, no dramatic press conference. Just a quiet, private confirmation to the only people who had lived that World Cup journey alongside him. It was the ending millions had quietly suspected for years, confirmed not with headlines, but with an honest conversation among teammates who had shared every high and low of the journey together. Today, at 39, Lionel Messi's club career continues at Inter Miami, where he remains under contract through December 2028, meaning, even with international football behind him, his story on the pitch is far from finished. Argentina's head coach Lionel Scaloni has acknowledged the significance of Messi's decision, while Argentina's Football Association has reportedly made clear their respect for whatever direction Messi's future takes, having already secured qualification for the symbolic 2030 World Cup as a joint host nation alongside Paraguay and Uruguay. Off the pitch, Messi continues to build a life centered around his wife, Antonella Rocuzzo, and their 3 sons, Thiago, Matteo, and Ciro, a family life that has remained a steady, grounding presence throughout every high and low of his career. This story matters right now because it captures something rare in modern sports. The exact moment a legend quietly closes one chapter, not with a dramatic farewell tour, but with an honest conversation among the people who understood the journey best. Messi didn't need a press conference to confirm what the world already suspected. He simply told the truth to the people who mattered most, then let the tears at MetLife Stadium say the rest. He was a boy in Rosario whose own body once threatened to hold him back before his career had even begun. He became the greatest footballer of his generation. 8 Ballon d'Ors, a World Cup title, and a legacy no debate can diminish. But in the end, it wasn't another trophy that revealed who Lionel Messi truly was. It was a quiet, tearful walk off a pitch in New Jersey and an honest conversation in a locker room afterward. A man finally admitting, to the people who'd earned the truth first, that this remarkable chapter had reached its end. Because sometimes, the greatest of all time doesn't need the world watching to say goodbye. Sometimes, he just needs the people who lived it with him. If Messi's journey has meant something to you, share your favorite memory of him below. The story may be ending, but the legacy is only just beginning to be written into history.